With current generation products, consumer processors range from $60 to $1,700. Now this may not be obvious to you, but it is to me, but you do not need a $1,700 CPU in order to run CSGO. You don't even need a $300 CPU. So today we're going to use a Devil's Canyon i7, the i7 4790K, to simulate performance of a Haswell i5, i3, and the ever-popular budget CPU, the Pentium G3258. I am doing this through BIOS settings by enabling and disabling hyperthreading and disabling cores. Linus Tech Tips has proved that simulating performance this way is legitimate, assuming that the architecture is the same. And this is the case since it is a Haswell-based system that I'm trying to simulate. So basically what this means is that you can't use Skylake or Kaby Lake to simulate Haswell, you can't use Sandy Bridge to simulate anything else. The specs of the PC used to test are 16GB of DDR3 RAM, an XFX RX 480 8GB, and an i7 4790K at 4.5 GHz. I would like to point out that all of these simulated processors are clocked at 4.5 GHz. This is a very achievable overclock on any G3258, an i5 4690K, and an i7 4790K. This generation of processors did not have an unlocked i3 like the current generation Kaby Lake 7350K, but the purpose of this test is to compare threads and not just processing clock speeds across processors. The first game we are benchmarking is Counter-Strike Go. For this benchmark, I pretty much just run through Nuke on a set path. So I set all of the settings to their highest preset with filtering at 8x and anti-aliasing at 8x. Across our 4 runs, we see that performance drops very hard when we use the simulated G3258, almost halving our average and actually cutting our minimum in half from the i7 and simulated i5. However, this game was very playable though. It felt smooth and not stuttery at all. At this point, most of your GPU power is not being used at all though. Grand Theft Auto 5 is the next game that I tested. For the benchmark, I ran the built-in benchmark to allow for comparable results. This footage is from the benchmark row in the Pentium. Textures are not rendering, they are popping in and out, and it was just not acceptable. I tried playing the game and it was the same deal. Every processor with more threads was able to be smooth while allowing textures to render. The i7 and i5 performed practically identical to one another. While the average for the i3 was awesome, the minimums showed that the hyperthreads are not as efficient as the i5's true processing cores. The final game is the newest release in our series of benchmarks, and it is Battlefield 1. This game is known for using all processing threads available to it. Our Pentium was seriously struggling here though. When I was playing on Ballroom Blitz, I was unable to move my mouse over the targets before they killed me. I was surprised that it was that bad, but simply stepping up to an i3 allowed my averages to go from 24 to over 70. Like the other games, we've seen that at least 4 true cores allow for your GPU to truly shine though. So it's simple, games are using more processing threads. Getting yourself a new hyper-threaded Pentium like the G4560 or an i5 seems to be great choices for those looking to get the most out of their hardware and the new games. The Pentium just lacks the threads for games newer than 2013 or through 2014. BioShock Infinite, Mass Effect 1 through 3, Fallout 3, and New Vegas, and generally games from the previous generation just run really well with this processor. This makes a cheap i5 a sweet spot for getting the most out of your graphics card. Stepping up to an i7 is only really useful for multi-threaded workloads like video rendering or multitasking. If you aren't doing those, you will be wasting your money on an i7. However, as more games are starting to use more threads and APIs like DX12 and especially Vulkan are being used more by game devs, it will serve you well to invest in a higher threaded processor. Thanks for watching guys. If you want to see more in the G3258 paired with the GTX 950, check out my hardware swap build. And until next time,